In the dense jungles of eastern Afghanistan, the last light of dusk slipped through the thick canopy, falling upon a mist-covered clearing. A man in combat fatigues, SEAL Commander Marcus Blake, raised his binoculars, his gaze sharp yet disdainful. In the distance, nearly a kilometer away, a small figure lay hidden among moss-covered trees. A woman, her sniper rifle almost as long as her body, stayed perfectly still, listening to the whisper of the wind as if the forest itself were speaking to her. Blake smirked, muttering into his radio. A female sniper, alone against a dozen armed men? She'll be dead in minutes. His tone carried a mix of pity, a trace of contempt, and above all, certainty, because in the mind of that seasoned commander, the battlefield had never been a place for women. But 5 minutes later, the forest no longer echoed with arrogant laughter, only silence. 12 enemies lay scattered beneath the trees, their rifles slipping from lifeless hands onto the damp leaves. Blake lowered his binoculars, eyes widening in disbelief. The woman he had once dismissed now stood amid the woods, the wind brushing strands of hair across her mud-streaked mask. Her eyes, calm, razor-sharp and cold as the frozen lakes of Alaska. In just 5 short minutes, she hadn't only saved a SEAL unit. She had shattered every prejudice the battlefield had ever held. Her name was Staff Sergeant Luna Cross. Call sign? Phantom. 28 years old. The mysterious female sniper of the United States Army. The one every SEAL commander doubted, until they saw what she was truly capable of. Before becoming the phantom who haunted the Afghan forests, Staff Sergeant Luna Cross was once a quiet little girl living at the world's edge, deep in the frozen wilderness of Alaska, where winter lasted 8 months and the cold could turn a breath into frost within seconds. There, amid howling winds and nights without a single light, Luna learned how to survive, listen to nature, and be silent. She grew up with her father, Sergeant Major Robert Tracker Cross, a legendary U.S. Army sniper who had survived 3 wars and carried with him the names of 89 fallen enemies. After losing his wife in an accident, he left the military and withdrew into the forest, raising his daughter in his own way, harsh, quiet, and profoundly philosophical. Their cabin stood more than 80 kilometers from the nearest village, reachable only by snowmobile or small plane. Before the sun rose behind the ice-covered mountains every morning, he would lead Luna through faint tracks in the snow, teaching her to read the world through every crack, breath, and whisper of wind. "Don't fight nature," he told her one early dawn as they lay prone in the snow, watching a herd of deer through the scope. "Listen to it. When you can hear what the forest is saying, you'll survive." Luna was only 10 then, but her brown eyes reflected the same steady light as her father's. By the age of 12, she could track the blood trail of a wounded wolf across miles of snow without losing its path. At 14, she fired her first shot, striking the heart of a caribou more than 800 meters away against the wind that swept across the mountainside. There were no words of praise, no shouts of triumph, only her father's silent nod. To him, precision was not a skill, but a form of integrity. At night, sitting beside the weak firelight, he often spoke of things the military never taught. Any fool can pull a trigger, but a true sniper knows when to shoot, when not to, and most of all, how to live with the consequence of that shot. Luna listened and remembered every word. Through endless afternoons in the wilderness, she practiced holding her breath until her heartbeat matched the rhythm of the wind. She learned to move without leaving a trace, to blend into the shadows as if her skin itself belonged to the forest. Slowly, she became one with that wild world, silent, precise, and unpredictable. One evening, as they sat beside a frozen river, Robert looked at his daughter, pride and fear mingling in his weary eyes, and said softly, "You don't have to be the best sniper in the world. Just be someone whose bullet always has a reason to exist." Those words stayed with Luna for life. They became her compass in every battle, every decision, every breath taken between life and death. She didn't just learn how to aim. She learned to see the world through the scope, where a single misalignment could cost a human life. From that frozen Alaskan forest, a girl was forged, not to be famous, not to prove herself, but to survive, and to quietly do what was right when everyone else was wrong. On the day she left Alaska to enlist, Luna turned back to look at the snow-covered mountains, the witnesses of her childhood, where her father stood motionless in the cold, one hand raised in farewell. In the wind, she heard his voice again, echoing like the spirit of the land itself. When the world doubts you, don't be angry. Let your bullet speak for you. And that was how a girl born of snow and silence, carrying the resolve of stone, the precision of the wind, and the heart of a true soldier, stepped into the military. Into a world that refused to believe a woman could stand firm in the storm and hold her rifle steady. But soon, she would make them believe. In her early years in the service, Luna Cross entered a world where every gaze probed her and every compliment seemed laced with suspicion. From the first day at the training center, she became the subject of whispered remarks among her peers. She was only chosen because she's a woman. That's policy, not ability. Let's see how long she lasts. Luna did not answer. She did not argue or rebut. She trained, observed silently, and waited for her chance. While other recruits struggled at 300 meters, she hit the bullseye at 800. When others' hands trembled in the wind, she calculated wind direction by feel, without instruments. Instructors watched, half skeptical, half convinced, and in their notebooks they wrote only 2 words: extraordinary. But a woman's extraordinariness is often read as arrogance in a man's world. At the sniper range, a senior officer once looked at her and let slip what sounded like a joke. "You may shoot well, Cross, but out there, it's not a range. There's blood and screaming. Do you think you can take it?" Luna replied only with a composed look. "I do not need to think about it, sir. I have endured that my whole life." She was never permitted to show weakness, from the cold Alaskan wilderness to the blazing training grounds. What set her apart was not only skill, but also how she viewed war, as a moral equation, not a game of power. While others chased records, she spent her time analyzing wind, terrain, light, and even the psychology of the target. She did not merely learn to hit, she learned to understand. Yet in operational briefings, Luna was often seated at the corner of the table, her voice drowned out by the confident voices of men. When she proposed an infiltration route that used an upwind approach to reduce detection risk, they dismissed it. They scoffed when she pointed out an anomaly on the heat map. "You've been watching too many war movies." Luna did not react. She smiled, then took notes. Each night in her small barracks room, she reviewed the entire mission dossier, reading even the old reports of Commander Marcus Steele Blake, the man renowned for his hard, decisive command and absolute faith in brute force. Blake was the archetype of the classic warrior, aggressive, loud, and proud. In his view, people like Luna were appointed aides, nothing more. "Cross is a good marksman," he said at one tactical meeting. But on the battlefield, when bullets fly and men fall, I need instinct, not patience. Many nodded at that remark. Luna only bowed her head. But after the meeting, when everyone had left, she stood before the campaign map, her hand resting lightly on a gray-shaded sector, and whispered, "One day, sir, you will see the difference between instinct and vision." In the following years, Luna was assigned to so-called safe tasks, remote surveillance, supporting fire, and terrain observation. She did not complain. She quietly executed each detail well. She understood. Every opportunity to prove herself arrived, disguised as a challenge. That opportunity came in the winter of her third year, during a campaign named Operation Silent Thunder, the top-secret mission deep in the mountainous forests of eastern Afghanistan. The objective? Eliminate a notorious terrorist leader responsible for a string of attacks against coalition forces. When the plan was presented, Luna noticed something off. Satellite imagery showed unusually dense tree cover at the target area, while trails appeared with unsettling regularity, as if maintained deliberately. She quietly pointed at the screen and said softly, "These trails aren't natural. They're being maintained. Someone is hiding here." Blake glanced over, smirked, noted cross, but this mission requires swift action, not guesswork. She remained silent. No one knew that Luna stayed at the base that night longer than anyone else, sitting by the map, reading every line of data and analyzing every wind flow, slope, and opening. In her mind, the outlines of ambush positions emerged, as clear as animal tracks on the snow years ago. She did not yet know that, in a few days, every doubt, every sneer, and every prejudice about the woman with a gun would dissolve, and that she, once called the military's political gift, would be the one to save the entire SEAL team led by Marcus Blake. But Luna still sat alone when the last lights in the barracks went out that night. She removed her rifle, cleaned the barrel carefully, then murmured as if speaking to her father in the snowy woods of years past. "Father, perhaps the next round will not be to prove I can hit the target, but to prove I was right, not to give up." The helicopter touched down in the darkness, its rotor blades slicing the air, whipping dust and sand into a violent storm that cut against bare skin like cold blades. Operation Silent Thunder had begun. Inside the cabin, 8 SEAL operators checked their weapons, faces grim and tense. Only Luna sat quietly in the corner, the red cabin light casting shadows across her cheekbones, her eyes deep and unnervingly calm. In her earpiece, Marcus Blake's voice came through, short, sharp, commanding. "The plan's simple. We go in hard. Phantom, you'll cover us from range. Do not move from your assigned position. Copy?" "Copy, sir." Luna's reply was soft but steady. Her hand gripped the cold steel of her M2010 sniper rifle, feeling each subtle vibration through the metal. As the helicopter's skids touched ground, the team deployed swiftly. No one spoke. The night was thick, the air heavy with the scent of wet leaves. Luna broke off from the group, moving silently toward her assigned overwatch position, a low ridge nearly a kilometer from the target compound. She went prone, adjusted her scope, checked wind direction, humidity, and elevation. Everything seemed right, yet deep inside an old instinct stirred. She spotted the enemy compound through the scope, a cluster of small structures hidden in the forest, just as the satellite images had shown. But as she slowly panned across the terrain, she saw what no map could reveal. Odd mounds of dirt, tree trunks cut too cleanly, patches of flattened ground. the telltale signs of firing pits and ambush sites. She inhaled deeply, then keyed her comms. "Steele, this is Phantom. I've got movement north 50 meters. Multiple contacts moving into position." "Phantom, maintain radio silence. Maintain radio silence. We see nothing." Blake's voice was curt, absolute. He trusted the map and his instincts more than the quiet woman from Alaska. Luna bit her lip, eyes still locked to the scope. She knew she was right. The forest itself, the tilt of the leaves, the faint shift of reflected moonlight was warning her. Then it happened. A dry, cracking explosion split the air, followed by a hail of gunfire from all directions. Flashes lit up the darkness. The forest erupted with the staccato rain of tracer rounds. Blake's team was caught in a crossfire. There was no cover or escape. The radio came alive with chaos, heavy breathing, shouted calls. "Contact! Contact! We're ambushed! Heavy fire from east and north! Steele, request permission to reposition for support." "Negative! Hold your position! That's an order!" Luna froze for a heartbeat. Orders. The one rule she had been taught was never to disobey. But right then she knew. If she followed that order, they would die. She unlocked the rifle's bolt, attached her suppressor, and slid silently from her perch. Every movement flowed with the rhythm of the forest. No sound, no trace. Her breathing slowed. Her heart matched the pulse of the wind. Once again she became the girl from Alaska, tracking the snow wolf through a storm. She crawled through mud and pressed against tree roots, and every shift was calculated to avoid detection. 60 kilograms of gear on her back, yet she moved like mist. Finally, she reached a rocky ledge, higher ground, wider view, perfect concealment. She mounted her rifle, peered through the scope, and the battlefield unfolded like a chessboard. 8 SEALs pinned in the open, 12 hostiles closing in from the perimeter, and 1 enemy leader, crouched behind cover giving hand signals to coordinate fire. Range, 547 meters. Wind, left to right, 8 miles per hour. Target posture, low crouch, half covered by foliage. Window of opportunity, less than 2 seconds. Luna held her breath. The world stilled. Half a breath. Hold. Squeeze. A single dry crack. Half a second later, the bullet cut through leaves and struck dead center in the man's chest. He collapsed instantly, radio slipping from his hand. The forest froze. Panic swept the ambushers. They didn't even know where the shot had come from. Luna adjusted. Second shot. Downed the machine gunner pinning Blake's team. Third, fourth. 2 flanking enemies fell before they even changed position. Each shot left the barrel like a breath. Steady, precise, silent. The SEALs ceased return fire, holding still, realizing what was happening. Within 5 minutes, all 12 hostiles lay motionless on the forest floor. No wasted rounds, no screams. Only the soft clink of brass shells falling into the dirt, lost in the night wind. The radio went dead silent. Then Blake's voice broke through, shaken, stunned. "Phantom, was that you? Those shots, where the hell did they come from?" "This is Phantom. Targets neutralized. Area secure. Standing by for next orders, sir." Her voice was calm. No pride, no tremor, as if it were just another drill. But inside she knew. This time, her bullet hadn't just saved lives. It had pierced through years of prejudice that had weighed on her shoulders. The SEAL team exfiltrated safely when the mission ended and the enemies were wiped out. On the helicopter ride back, amid the deafening roar of the rotors, Blake looked at her for a long time. His face was unreadable. Confusion, awe, guilt. Until he finally spoke, voice low. "Cross, I owe you my entire team." Luna looked at him, a faint smile crossing her lips. "No one owes anyone, sir. We just did our jobs." Blake fell silent. He had met countless skilled shooters before, but none with her composure, stillness, and quiet command of fear. And that night, under the black Afghan sky, he understood. Everything he had ever believed about strength and limits had just been erased in 5 minutes. As the helicopter lifted away from the battlefield, red warning lights flickered across soldiers' faces still covered in smoke and dust. They sat in silence, not out of fear, but because they had just witnessed something that no tactical manual could ever prepare them for. No one said thank you. No one shouted in triumph. They simply looked at Luna, the woman sitting quietly at the back of the cabin, eyes steady, hand resting on her rifle as if the firefight had never happened. Commander Marcus Blake removed his helmet, his gaze lingering on her face. Calm as a frozen lake, yet holding something deeper. Unshakable faith in herself. He spoke slowly, his voice breaking slightly through the hum of the engines. "Cross, you just did something no one thought possible. 12 targets, 5 minutes, not a single miss. You saved my entire team." Luna lifted her head, her voice low but firm. "I only did my duty, sir." Blake shook his head, a newfound respect glinting in his eyes. "No, Cross. You didn't just do your duty. You redefined it." Something shifted in that moment amid the wind and the thundering rotors. Not just in how Blake saw her, but in how every man on that chopper saw themselves. They understood that true strength wasn't in muscle, or in a loud voice, or rank. It was in calm, in the stillness between chaos and clarity. And in that, Luna Cross was the master. Weeks later, the official report for Operation Silent Thunder was delivered directly to the Special Operations Command. It quickly became classified training material, listed among the model scenarios for tactical and psychological excellence. In the evaluation summary, one line stood out in bold. Staff Sergeant Luna Cross demonstrated combat performance beyond human standards. Maintained absolute composure. Eliminated 12 targets under disadvantageous conditions. Note: exhibits high-level battlefield coordination capability. 6 months later, Luna was promoted to Sergeant First Class, serving as a sniper advisor to several special operations units. But more importantly, her reputation spread quickly through the SEAL community. The people who once doubted or mocked her now competed to have her on their team. Yet Luna paid little attention to fame. When asked how it felt to be recognized finally, she only smiled. "Respect isn't given, it's earned, one bullet at a time." 2 years later, Marcus Blake, now promoted to Admiral, commander of the entire Naval Special Operations Force, sent a personal request. "I want Luna Cross as chief advisor for the sniper training program." It wasn't just a recommendation. It was an apology in action. When they met again, Blake extended his hand, his tone sincere. "That day, I saw what this entire military had been blind to. Gender doesn't define strength. Courage and skill do. And you, Cross, you are the proof." Luna took his hand lightly, her eyes as calm as ever. "You don't need to apologize, Admiral. If you'd believed in me back then, I wouldn't have had the chance to prove you wrong." Blake chuckled, warmth returning to his stern face. He knew she was right. His doubt had allowed her to change an entire generation's perception of what a warrior could be. Today, Master Sergeant Luna Phantom Cross serves as director of the Strategic Sniper Training Center, teaching young soldiers how to pull the trigger and stay calm when everything collapses. There is no shouting, no pressure in her classroom, only silence. The silence she calls the only teacher real bullets ever listen to. Whenever trainees ask for her secret to becoming a great sniper, Luna simply smiles. The rifle is just a tool. What truly decides where the bullet goes is the heart behind the trigger. Her story spread far beyond the military, symbolizing resilience and self-belief. She didn't just take down 12 enemies in 5 minutes. She dismantled 12 years of prejudice that the military system had built. And if anyone asks her what made her so strong, she answers softly, "Not because I'm a woman, not because I'm a soldier, but because I learned to stay silent until my gun spoke for me." So if you've ever been underestimated, judged for where you come from, your gender, or how you look, remember this story. Because sometimes 5 minutes of courage can silence the world. This isn't a war story. It's a story about belief. Belief in yourself when the world turns away. And that belief saved 8 lives and changed the history of a military. Deep life tales, where true stories come alive like films of courage and humanity. If you believe real strength has no gender, comment, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to join us as we continue telling stories that touch the human heart. Deep life tales, retelling the moments that remind us that even in silence, some bullets change the world.